Good afternoon. Over the past few years, we have gathered for a press conference at the beginning of every summer and shared IMPD's plan to address crime. Although we have enjoyed many successes, however, the initiatives we implemented for the short summer term went on for a few months, and then IMPD returned to status quo policing. Today, we changed this philosophy. Today, we announce how IMPD and our partners plan to address crime from June through December and beyond. At this time, I would like to welcome our mayor, Mr. Joe Hogsett, for his remarks.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Major, for that introduction. It indeed is a different day for the city of Indianapolis. It's a different day for the residents of our neighborhoods. It's a different day for the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. Statistically, it's true. During the summer months, we see an uptick in violent crime in our city. Historically, the numbers are not encouraging, and that is why we come together today in new and innovative and creative ways to further the efforts that have already been made to reestablish community policing in our great city. This summer, Indianapolis public safety officers are going to do everything within our power to combat the scourge of violence that has too long plagued too many of our great neighborhoods in this city. Great neighborhoods like the one that we stand in right now. Neighborhoods like Washington Park, Forest Manor, Martindale, Brightwood. For too long, summer has meant honest, law-abiding citizens of some of these neighborhoods that have been historically underserved. Those neighbors would lock their doors and not emerge after the sun went down until morning out of fear of becoming a victim of violence, intentional or not. Those days are over. They end this summer. Your Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department is committed to keeping this city and her citizens safe and secure. We have made plans to combat crime, combat the fear of crime, and to increase public safety throughout this city. And as the Majors just said, not just this summer, but going forward for the rest of this year. As I've said time and again, we cannot arrest our way out of our public safety challenges. In addition to police actions, our community leaders must come together and join arm in arm with us to ensure peace in the streets throughout the neighborhoods of our city. We must fight the seemingly endless cycle of poverty and desperation that adversely impacts the quality of life for so many, for too many of our citizens, before they even have a chance to be given a start in life. We must fight against those who push drugs, push guns in our community. We must fight against those who would use our youth to further their own illegal activities. We must fight against those who terrorize our neighbors, your neighbors, my neighbors, the people of our city. We are all in this together. Every single resident of Indianapolis. It matters not your age, your race, your past, your living situation, your station in life. We stand together today as one city, united, arm in arm, one city against those who try to make Indianapolis anything less than the greatest city in our country. We have the greatest city in all of America. We have the greatest community activists, the greatest neighborhood organizations, the greatest faith community, and we have the greatest police department in our country. We're capable of accomplishing anything we set out to do, and it starts today. So for more specifics on this summer and the rest of our year's crime initiatives, I'm honored to recognize our police chief, Troy Riggs. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon. I'm going to take a couple of moments, and I really want to give you a little background and kind of where we're headed in the future. This is a big day for IMPD. It is certainly a change in philosophy on how to police, and I want to explain that in depth to you today. The mayor has made it very clear, and with his bold leadership, talking about the public safety crisis that we have endured in this community, and after naming me chief of police, he asked me to start really looking at the data once again, trying to figure out what we were dealing with, and what we saw was alarming. And let me be clear, we're seeing this in major cities across America where the homicide rate and shootings continue to grow throughout major cities. But here in Indianapolis, what we saw was in the last 7 months of last year were the most violent 7 months in the history of Indianapolis. 103 people lost their lives on the streets of Indianapolis. In the last 6 months, we were averaging pretty much one murder every 2 days. Think about that, one murder every other day. On January the 2nd, the mayor wasted no time calling state, federal, and local partners together to talk about these alarming numbers and some other numbers we looked at. And I can tell you they all promised cooperation at a level that they hadn't before, and they have lived up to their words. They also talked about some frustration, quite frankly. Frustration in the past, and what we have decided to do is listen to that, listen to our workforce and their frustration, learn from that, and focus on the future. But they promised to meet in the future, and we continue to meet with each one of those federal, state, and local partners. At that time, we also promised a 100-day plan. That 100-day plan was a little bit different than what you'd seen in the past. It wasn't just an initiative for 100 days. It was an initiative for 100 days that would build the foundation to the future. I'm pleased to say that those individuals behind me in our workforce accomplished that 100-day plan and allows us to move forward today. It did build a future. Let me just say this. The issues that we face as a city are systemic issues. The issues we face as a city are generational issues, and they will not be solved overnight. It takes consistent and persistent pressure to see positive change. And in some areas and in some blocks, it could get worse before it gets better. We have to be clear about that. And in the good times and the bad times, we as a community need to continue to be focused so we can see positive change over a longer period of time. The good news is that the violent trending that we were seeing in 2015 at the end, while it still continues to increase in other cities, we have seen a leveling out in Indianapolis and a slight dip. That's the good news. The bad news is we're still at unacceptable levels. Let's review what we are facing as a community. Last year, 30% of our homicides, 30% of our non-fatal shootings occurred in just 8 square miles of our 400 square miles. 45% of the homicides occurred in 15 square miles. The same 15 square miles that our beat officers, many of whom are here today, are working each and every day now. Areas where drug dependency, vacant housing, and mental health issues are all on the rise. Areas where unemployment and job opportunities are similar to that of the Great Depression. Lack of education, and the list goes on and on. You know most of these numbers, but let me give you some numbers that you haven't heard recently. Our city is a great city. It has so many things to be thankful for. It's growing in so many positive ways. And in between 2000 and 2014, the city grew by 74,000 residents. But during that same period, people living in poverty grew by over 101,000 residents. That has put a strain on government services, and I can tell you, for me and the chief for the first 5 months, it has certainly put a strain on the services of IMPD and our workforce. Additionally, gun violence across the nation continues to grow. In Indy, we've seen an increase in homicides. We've seen an increase in non-fatal shootings. We're seeing more and more violence. But something that hasn't been discussed, and I think it's an important part of the dialogue in the public, is that each year for a workforce of 1,650 officers, 700 officers are assaulted each and every year. We need to remember that about the brave men and women of IMPD. The troubling fact about that number is not just the 700, but in 2009, out of that 700, 5 officers were assaulted with firearms. In 2014, that number jumped to 37 and continues to grow. Now, all this information that I'm sharing sounds pessimistic in some way, but I'm not. I'm optimistic because I've seen people in this community rallying around. I've seen us accomplish our 100-day plan. We now have beat officers on the street, narcotics officers now assigned to districts where we didn't have narcotics function in the districts, and you're going to hear more about that by our commanders in a moment. We have flex officers in the districts, community partners stepping up, and community members helping us in unprecedented numbers, and we're just in the 6th month of the Hogsett administration. Our goal at the beginning in January was to slow the level of violence, was to become more focused as an organization, and we have done that, but also to start being more productive in building community partnerships. So I want to make clear, what we discuss here today is not just a summer enforcement initiative. It happens to begin in the summer, but this is a change in the philosophy of how IMPD will operate. Today marks the beginning. We do not want to see the repeat of what we saw last year with a homicide every other day. So we're really looking at 3 phases. Phase number 1 has been completed. We're currently entering phase 2, and phase 3 will be in the future as we develop working plans, and we work those plans with the community's help in the future, 2017 and 2018. Phase 1 involved listening to the community at 100 different community meetings. Phase 1 included selecting a staff with the help of the community. Phase 1 included completing a 100-day plan and making preparations for summer of 2016. We entered phase 2 the middle part of May of 2016. We've improved our policing through beat officers, narcotics, and flex teams, and we're using data at a level we've never done before. We've given you numbers, but we now have a social disorder index that tells us the very homes, the very properties that are leading to crime and violence in our community, and the repeat offenders. We have individuals that are listed in police reports 39 and 40 times over a couple-month period. In the future, they will get visits by IMPD before we have to take another report. Let me give you a few other things that we're going to be doing this summer. More interaction with the community. Our beat officers are going to be given the goal of meeting with every business owner, every faith-based facility, and every school on their beats by the end of the year. That's something that will continue in 2017. We will have days that will be specifically designated as a Walk a Beat Day. And our first Walk a Beat Day will occur next Monday as beat officers go out and start meeting people in the community and sharing information, and more importantly, gathering information about the issues that they're facing. We will use that social disorder index to visit individuals that have been has a history of causing problems and been listed on reports, and not only seeing if we need to take enforcement action, but see if there's something else there by working with clergy and community members, mental health issues, dependency issues, working with EMS to provide services there as well. We'll have a greater focus on guns and drugs by using our new beat officers, by using our flex team, by using our narcotics teams in the districts. We are going to start going after those individuals that have been openly and brazenly selling narcotics on the street corners. We're going to work with the community to remove them. That job has already begun, and it will continue aggressively over the next few months. We're going to, within the next 30 days, start visiting those 50% of the individuals that have been shot in our community and it will not cooperate with the police. We're going to use our non-fatal review team to look at those individuals we think that were involved in criminal behavior, and that's why they will not speak to the police. Our individuals that we believe are going to look for retribution for being shot, and we're going to send an officer and hopefully a member of the clergy to their home to talk to them and their family and try to get that number down. That's one of the ways we think we can stop violence. We will have our first CompStat meeting looking at computer-generated data and being flexible and nimble as a police department and putting officers in the right place at the right time, which means our officers are willing to go to these dangerous areas. And I want to be very clear today that this is a lot of work that we've been in the planning stages for the first 5 months. It's work that's undergoing now, but I want to be very clear about this last point, is that you can expect major police operations in this city. Not major police operations that you've seen in other cities where we go in and do mass arrests to try to find 1 or 2 people causing violence. Mass police activity based on information from the community, based on outstanding narcotics warrants, based on outstanding violent crime warrants, where we work with our state and local federal partners to go into areas and to remove those individuals that are causing harm for the great majority of citizens that live in our high crime area. Our goal is to reduce crime, reduce the fear of crime, enhance public safety, and these operations are going to be an important step. It's not going to be one and done. It's going to be led by MPD. We're going to have our state and federal partners, and it will continue at different times throughout the year. I also want to be clear with the media. We have been very open. We have been transparent. But when it comes to these major operations, we will tell you about those after they begin. We're going to be putting officers in harm's way, and we don't want to do anything to jeopardize the safety of the officers. But we will tell you once they begin, and we will give you updates. We have a long road ahead of us, and it's going to be difficult for us to be successful without the community support. That's why we're here today, to tell you what we've done, the hard work we've done in 5 months. There's no major police department in America that's moved further, faster than IMPD, and it's because of our tremendous workforce and the support we have from the community. To tell you a little bit operationally how this has resulted in improvement in our services as a police department, I've asked 2 commanders to speak today. The first will be Commander Chris Bailey. They can talk to you a little bit more about what the beat officers are doing, how he's going to utilize them this summer, and also his narcotics and flex teams. And then Commander Connect. I thought it was important to hear from him today because we do have entertainment beats for the very reasons we have seen recently in Orlando. So I'm going to have both of those commanders speak at this time. Commander Bailey.
Thanks, Chief. Good afternoon. We here at IMPD are under a philosophical change. We've seen beat policing come back. Our officers are getting out of their cars and engaging our community, and it's paying dividends already in the short period of time, as you've heard in the recent homicide arrests. And I can tell you that we have seen an increase in information and tips given to us, specifically around narcotics dealing. Obviously, anytime you start something new, there are growing pains with it, and the beat system isn't necessarily perfect right now, but with input from our officers that are doing it each and every day in the community, we'll adapt and make it better. We, as a police department, must continue to work with our community partners, faith-based groups, nonprofits, and governmental organizations to improve the quality of life in our community and help make lasting change in people's lives and communities. But the police are going to be the police. We cannot have 103 lives taken away from multiple families again in the second half of this year as we did last year. The community people we talk to demand that we take action against it, and we will. The district commanders, thanks to the leadership of Mayor Hogsett and Chief Riggs, have given us new tools to help defend our neighborhoods from gangs, drugs, and illegally possessed guns. Beat officers, narcotics units, and flex teams are deployed on each of our districts. And we have seen immediate results in just a short period, less than a month. Earlier this week on Southwest District, narcotics detectives working with their flex team and federal partners arrested a man and took an AK-47 off the street and a large sum of meth. Less than a month ago, after 4 people were shot just a couple blocks from this park at 34th and Keystone, North District narcotics officers, beat officers, and flex team officers located one of the main players shortly after a person was shot on 34th Street and removed another high-powered rifle and 2 bulletproof vests from that person. On May 8th, beat officers working in the Meadows stopped a car with suspects who had just murdered someone in the Meadows apartments. The list goes on and on. We're not letting up the pressure. This isn't a one-and-done program. This is just the way we're going to do business going forward. So here's the message from your police department. If you are a gang member, a drug dealer, a wanted violent felon, or you are terrorizing our city with illegally possessed weapons, the IMPD, our federal partners, our state partners, are not going to stop until you're held accountable. The neighborhoods are talking to us, and some of you are going to be getting a visit from us very soon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Commander Chad Kinnett, commander of the IMPD's downtown district. It's been said that courage is looking fear in the eye and saying, get out of the way, we have work to do. That's exactly what you saw the community of Indianapolis do this week. Because of the establishment of beat policing on our entertainment zones, we have 2 entertainment zone beats on downtown district in Indianapolis. One of those is the South Meridian Street corridor. The other is the Mass Ave corridor. After the establishment of those entertainment zones and the beats, the officers immediately began to engage the communities on those beats, both in the residential areas and our population growth in the apartments and condominiums downtown Indianapolis, and also especially within our bars, taverns, nightclubs, restaurants, entertainment venues such as museums, the theaters. Everywhere that you could go, our beat officers began engaging the communities in those entertainment zones. That came to fruition after the tragic incidents in Orlando, Florida this weekend. We were able to establish in a matter of hours what formerly would have taken this agency days, possibly even weeks to establish, because of the engagement and the relationships built upon trust that our beat officer had with those who resided, worked, and lived in downtown Indianapolis in our entertainment zones. They were able to go in and have conversations built upon trust on a first-name basis, rather than a police officer going out and trying to meet or find a manager or a owner of a bar in downtown Indianapolis in our entertainment zones. It was Officer Kevin Moore who was able to go out and engage Ruth, a manager of a Metro bar on Massachusetts Avenue. We were able to sense the palpable fear in those locations after Orlando. They were frustrated, there was fear, and we were able to communicate with them and ease those fears and recognize what their needs were immediately. Within a matter of hours, we were able to work together closely with our Homeland Security Division, which now is located within the organizational structure of the police department, facilitated the very quick communication and the allocation of resources. And what would have taken days or even possibly weeks, we were able to set up in hours active shooter and crisis response training for our bars on Mass Ave in response to their fears and their concerns and our recognition that they felt unsure of themselves in these situations. So we were able to go in and allay their fears, provide the training, which will actually occur later this afternoon. And at that training, we will have the staff and ownership management from over 8 bars. In a matter of just 2 days, we were able to set that training up and have them trained prior to the first weekend post-Orlando. Prior to the establishment of beat policing, that could have taken a long time, and we may not have had the type and the level of conversations that we were able to have because those relationships that were established with our beat police officers in Indianapolis. So it was a prime example of the combination of the soft skills and the hard skills of community and beat policing. And that philosophy, how well it's embraced in IMPD and our return to beat policing and community engagement. We're able to hear those conversations coming from the residents and those who work and entertain downtown and actually apply the hard skills of counterterrorism and responding to active shooters, combining that mutual relationship, allaying their fears, building their trust, and showing them we're there to support them, listening to what their concerns were, and actually helping them grow and develop at the same time we were growing and developing and gaining information and enhancing each other as we move forward. So the return to beat policing and analyzing that data, we were able to establish very quickly that these high crime areas don't actually only exist in certain neighborhoods, but for certain periods of the day, on certain days of the week, they are very isolated into our entertainment venues, and we can actually establish those with beat police officers with significant effects. And without the real-time crime and data center providing that information, we would not have been able to establish that data and analyze that pattern and be able to develop those resources that quickly. So thank you to Mayor Hogsett and Chief Riggs for the return to beat policing and providing the resource to us. And I think we saw the fruits of that labor this week, and it will continue into the future. We'll engage more and more businesses within our entertainment zone providing that training and moving forward, making sure anyone who has any thoughts of providing any type of crime or conducting violence, whether it be a single incident or a hate-based incident in Indianapolis, you need to shop somewhere else because we're ready, we're prepared, and we will not tolerate it in our city. Thank you. To conclude, I'd like to introduce Deputy Mayor of Neighborhood Engagement, Dr. David Hampton.
Thank you and good afternoon. Prayerfully, we will see fewer than 144 homicides this year, due in part to the great leadership of our mayor, the great work of the men and women of IMPD, and the help of our community. What you're hearing today, hopefully, is a positive paradigm shift. It's a shift by which we are moving from beginning this initiative with enforcement to beginning with engagement. We have previously met with community individuals and community leaders, and let me ask the community now, if you see something, please say something. This will take the effort of our entire community, every neighborhood, every neighbor, to reduce the fear of crime and to reduce the number of homicides. We have assembled a community response team for the first time. It is a team that will assist not just IMPD, but will assist our neighbors in the community in sensitive situations. They will sacrifice their time when called upon to help us to not only to respond, but also to be of assistance to victims of crimes and individuals who need services. Part of our approach to reducing crime is to also address the root causes, which you've already heard. We want to address poverty. We want to address food insecurity. We want to address mental illness. And so with the great help of our wonderful men and women of IMPD, we're going to address those issues as well as make the necessary arrests for those individuals who deserve to be arrested and held accountable. We have various members of that community response team here today, and I want to thank them for their sacrifice and for stepping up. So going forward, we're hoping that we see a new dawn, a dawning of a new era in which we see practical police-community relations so that we reduce the number of homicides and reduce the fear of crime this year and ongoing. Thank you.
At this time, if anyone has any questions, we've run a little long, so we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Questions for the Chief. Chief Riggs, when it comes to flex teams, how often are those teams just purged?
Well, that's going to be up to the commanders. Here's what we're trying to instill as far as a philosophical change. One, more community-minded. I mean, the mayor has been very clear that my direction is to put more officers on the street and give them the opportunity to succeed. My understanding is anytime you put good, hardworking officers on the street, they're going to wow you every time. But also, we have 6 different districts. The reason I had 2 commanders speak today is that I want them to act as chiefs of their district. So I'm going to give them the resources, beat officers, give them the resources for narcotics, give them resources flex, and then they have to best decide how to utilize them. Then we're going to hold everybody accountable as we sit down in our CompStat program and review the progress that's been made, or if we're regressing, what we need to do. But it's really up to those individual commanders how to use their people and when to. Now remember, we really started making this change in May. We've had a few weeks under our belt. We're already taking assault weapons off the street that would still be on without this. We're taking drugs off the street, money that would still be there, and we're taking violent offenders. The other thing we're seeing early on, and these are just initial successes, is that when there is a call of violence, our officers are closer and they're responding faster. We have to review this over the next 2 months. We have about 70 officers that are in training for another 2.5 months. We know we're going to have some areas that we need additional resources, and we'll utilize them to fill them in. So this is going to be a progress that's going to grow through the rest of this year and next year as well.
Chief, given some of the changes and where we stand currently, what's your expectations and how confident and optimistic are you that we will see fewer than 103 homicides?
I'm optimistic we're going to see fewer 103 homicides, fewer than 1 every other day for this summer. But for us to be successful long term, it's going to take all of us working together. And one of the reasons I'm confident is because we're getting so many tips from the community now that we haven't before. Now, this isn't like coming through a tip line or something. This is information coming directly to us. And I have to thank Chief Taylor, who's here, that's been meeting with families and victims of crime and talking. We've cleared up numerous cases over the last month. I think we were up to, Rick, how many? We had 11 or 12 cases, I think, that we solved. We were having clearances of homicides sooner than we have in the past, all because citizens are being involved, and our friends from the prosecutor's office here have told us numerous times they're getting better tips as a result. So we're seeing some initial change in the positive direction, but let me be clear, it's a long-term fight that we're in, and we need to continue to earn people's respect and trust as we move forward. Mayor, do you want to add anything about that community part of that?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is pretty self-evident. I mean, one of the reasons why we asked the City County Council to make a fundamental change in the way public safety is organized by dismantling the Public Safety Department as it existed, so that Chief Riggs and Chief Malone would report directly to me. One of the reasons why we established in its stead an Office of Public Health and Safety is because this is, as one person mentioned, a paradigm shift away from simply reaction to proactive strategies that are designed not just to hold accountable those who break the law, although we will continue to do that, but rather engage our community partners as well as law enforcement officials, as the chief said, at federal, state, and local levels, in a proactive strategy to keep our young people and to keep those who would be inclined to join gangs and get involved in illegal drug activity, keep those people out of the criminal justice system altogether. And that's the paradigm shift that gives me confidence that we will see changes in the statistics.
Mayor, you walked the beat. I want to say about a month or so ago, what has been some of the feedback you received from residents in the community about the beat system?
Well, I think the commander said it best. Anytime you start or reinvigorate something that you haven't done in a while, there will be fits and spurts. But the truth is, I think that the beat system, the community-based, neighborhood-oriented policing that has been initiated by IMPD has enjoyed enormous success in just the first few weeks and months of its existence. As we grow our police force over the next year or two, we'll be able to expand that. But we want to make sure that those 19 beats that are currently being served, that we see what's working and we see what isn't working and change it so that it is as effective as it can be. Let me describe it this way. It is my hope, ultimately, and I think I speak for every officer and commander here, that in those areas where we have beat-oriented policing, that someone who unfortunately may encounter a problem will pick up the phone and will be calling their friend, who just happens to be an IMPD officer, rather than picking up the phone, calling IMPD, not knowing which officer will respond, who that officer is. In other words, establishing a relationship, which I think will help our policing and make it more proactive, but at the same time, enormously improve the relationship between our community and our police force. And if we do that, there will be change.
Just in closing, let me add one more thing. I talked about some of the major operations we'll have. When you're covering that, please remember this. Yes, there's some traditional policing that's going on, but it's more focused than it has been in the past, and it will be. But also pay attention to the community members that we have on board, that when we take someone out of a home, that we have community members and pastors going in to see if there's any needs in that home that need to be met. A lot of times we arrest someone, and that family goes into crisis. We want to make sure that family is not in crisis, and that the young people that may be left in that home don't turn to crime because they're hungry or they don't have clothing. So there's a lot going on with these operations. It's very thoughtful, it's practical, and you'll be seeing more and hearing more about that in the upcoming weeks. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.